Welcome to another deep dive. This time, we're looking at a potential game changer, I think, in wound care. We're talking about bandages, but not just any bandages.
Oh,
Bandages made with nanoflowers.
nanoflowers.
Yeah, nanoflowers. It sounds like something straight out of, science fiction.
Yeah, it does.
But it's real research
Right.
from the American Chemical Society. And we're diving deep into their article called New Nanotech Bandages Kill Bacteria and Speed Up Healing.
Sounds pretty futuristic.
Yeah.
What was it about this research that really caught your eye?
Well, just the idea that a bandage could not only cover a wound, but also actively help it heal faster
Right.
and fight infection.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. Infection and inflammation are two of the biggest hurdles when it comes to wound healing. So, if you could tackle those head on,
Yeah,
that would be huge.
exactly. And so the article talks about these nanoflowers, and they're these tiny self-assembling structures. And get this, they look like microscopic carnations.
Oh, wow.
So, visually that's pretty cool. But
Yeah.
putting that aside for a second, what makes them so special from like a practical standpoint?
Well, it all comes down to their structure. Think about it this way. A flat surface can only hold so much. But these nanoflowers, they've got all these tiny petals, right? So they have a way bigger surface area.
Right.
So they can actually carry much more medication directly to the wound. It makes them super efficient, delivery systems.
It's like having a targeted strike team delivering healing power right where it's needed most.
Exactly, yeah. And in this research, they weren't just messing around with any old ingredients. They actually loaded these nanoflowers up with copper phosphate and tannic acid.
Interesting combo. Why those two? What was the thinking there?
Well, the copper phosphate is known for, its ability to kill bacteria.
Okay.
And it works against, a whole bunch of different microbes that can really slow down that healing process.
Yeah.
It's like having a disinfectant built right in.
Yeah, build right into the bandage.
Yeah.
Okay, smart. And what about the tannic acid? What does that do?
Oh, that's a natural powerhouse. It's found in stuff like tea and grapes, and it's known for its anti-inflammatory properties.
Oh,
So it helps kind of calm things down around the wound,
Yeah.
reduces swelling, redness, all that stuff that basically creates a better environment for healing to actually happen.
So it's like a 1-2 punch. You knock out the bacteria, and then you soothe the inflammation.
Yeah.
But did they actually test these things out, to see if they really work?
Oh, yeah, they did. They tested the nanoflower bandages against some of those big names in the bacterial world, like E. coli and Staphylococcus aureus.
Oh, yeah.
Both of those can cause some really serious infections.
Those are tough ones to beat, especially when they form those biofilms, those communities of bacteria that are really hard to kill with regular antibiotics. How did the bandages do?
And that's where the results get really exciting. They were incredibly effective at stopping those bacteria, even those biofilms. It's a big win, when you think about fighting antibiotic resistance.
That's huge.
Yeah.
But are there any downsides? Anything we need to be worried about?
Well, with any new technology, especially when it comes to medicine, the biggest thing is safety.
Right.
So they tested the nanoflower bandages on some lab-grown human cells, and so far so good. They don't find any harm.
Okay, that's good. It sounds like they're checking all the right boxes, right? Effectiveness, targeted action, and they're safe.
This could really change how we think about wound care, couldn't it? But I'm curious about the bigger picture here. How big of an impact could this technology really have?
If this research, if it goes well, if it translates from the lab to, real-world use,
Yeah.
we could be looking at a major shift in how we treat wounds entirely. I'm talking faster healing, fewer infections, fewer complications. The potential benefits are massive. Okay, so how do these compare to, the wound care products that are already out there? Are we talking like a minor tweak, or is this like a total revolution?
That's a really good question. And I think to answer that, we need to do a deeper dive into how these nanoflower bandages stack up against what we're using now.
Okay, let's do that. I think our listeners are ready to learn about this potential revolution in wound care. Let's get to it. All right, so we know these nanoflower bandages, they look pretty incredible in the lab setting. But how do they actually compare to, what we're already using out there for wound care?
Right. Well, if you think about what we have now, there are basic bandages, right?
Yeah.
Those are great for covering the wound, protecting it, but they don't really, actively help it heal faster.
Right. And then there's like the antibiotic creams and ointments, right?
Yeah, those can help, fight off infection, but they don't always get deep enough,
Right.
to reach all the bacteria.
Right, and then there are those specialized dressings, right, for like burns and chronic wounds.
Yeah.
But those can be really expensive.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they have to be changed all the time, which isn't exactly, practical.
And definitely not comfortable.
Yeah.
No. So where do these nanoflower bandages fit into all of this? I think their biggest advantage is that they can do so many things at once. They can protect the wound like a regular bandage.
Yeah.
But they can also deliver that medication right to the spot, fight off infection, and reduce inflammation all at the same time.
So it's not just about doing what those other products do, but doing it better. It's like combining everything into one.
Exactly. Exactly. And that can have a ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
Think about it. If wounds heal faster, that's fewer trips to the doctor. You don't need those expensive treatments as much. Maybe even shorter hospital stays.
And way less risk of complications, which is a huge deal, especially if you have other health problems.
Absolutely, yeah. But let's be real for a sec. We need to talk about the elephant in the room.
Yeah.
Cost.
Right, because new technology is usually pretty expensive, right?
Almost always. And not everyone can afford that.
Exactly. It's great to have this amazing bandage, but if it costs a fortune, it's not going to help a lot of people.
Right, and that's where things get interesting because the stuff they use to make these nanoflowers, it's actually pretty cheap and easy to find. So if they can figure out, how to make a lot of these bandages without it costing a ton,
right,
it could actually be way cheaper in the long run than the stuff we're using now.
That would be a game changer. It's not just about better treatment. It's about making that treatment available to everybody.
Exactly. But, cost isn't the only thing, right?
Right.
There's the practical stuff, too. Like, how tough are these bandages?
Yeah, can they actually hold up?
Yeah.
Like with everyday life?
Exactly. And how often do they need to be changed? Will they work on all types of wounds? There's still a lot of questions.
Right. We still need to figure out, like when and where this technology makes the most sense.
Yeah, more research for sure. But, I think we can agree the potential is huge.
Oh, yeah.
This research opens up all kinds of exciting possibilities, not just for wounds, but maybe even beyond that.
Beyond wound care? What do you mean?
Well, think about it. This whole idea, right, of delivering medicine right where it's needed and releasing it in a controlled way and having all these different functions packed into one thing.
Yeah.
That could be huge in other areas of medicine, too.
Like what?
Well, imagine using this technology for chemo, right? Deliver those drugs straight to the cancer cells. Less side effects. Or what about using it to, repair damaged tissues and organs?
Okay, now that is getting a little sci-fi.
It is, but that's what makes this research so cool. It's not just about, a better bandage. It's about a totally new way of thinking about how we treat diseases and how we help the body heal.
Okay, but with any new technology, you got to think about, the questions and concerns too, right?
Oh, for sure.
Like, what about the environment?
Yeah. What happens to these nanoflowers after they've done their job? Do they just break down safely?
Right.
Or could they end up causing problems, out in the environment?
And could someone use this technology for, bad stuff instead of delivering good stuff?
It's definitely something to think about, right?
Yeah, we got to be smart about this.
Absolutely. We got to make sure any new technology, especially something with this much potential, is used responsibly and ethically.
Right.
And that means having these conversations, talking about the risks, talking about the challenges, not just, getting excited about what could be.
It's about being excited, but also being careful. We need to be mindful of those consequences. But for now, let's bring it back to our listeners. What's the one big thing you want them to take away from all of this?
I think the main point is that, we're seeing the very beginning of what could be a revolution in wound care and maybe even in medicine as a whole.
So it's not just a new bandage. It's a new way of thinking about how we take care of our bodies.
Exactly. And that is something to get excited about.
It is. But as we move forward with all this, we have to be smart about it. We got to consider all the angles, not just the science, but also the ethics, and how this impacts society as a whole.
Absolutely.
So with that said, I want to kind of shift gears a little bit here. We've talked a lot about, what this technology could do and the challenges that come with it. But I'm kind of curious about the research itself. What were some of the specific findings that you found really interesting?
That's a great question. Let's get into the details of the study and see what we can learn. Are you ready to dig into the nitty-gritty of the research?
Absolutely. I think our listeners are eager to hear more about the science behind these amazing nanoflowers.
Let's do it. All right, let's dive into some of the more specific stuff from the research. What were some of the findings that really stood out to you? Well, one thing I thought was really interesting was how they went after that whole antibiotic resistance problem.
Yeah.
They didn't just show that these bandages could kill bacteria in a dish.
Right.
They actually tested them against biofilms.
Right, those bacterial communities.
Yeah.
They're super tough to get rid of with regular antibiotics.
Exactly. And the results, pretty impressive. The nanoflower bandages actually disrupted the formation of those biofilms. Like, they basically stopped the bacteria from ganging up and building those protective walls.
That's a huge deal, especially with antibiotic resistance being such a big problem these days.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about, overwhelming them with force. They also looked at how the nanoflowers actually work.
Okay.
What they found was that the copper and the tannic acid,
Yeah.
they work together on a couple of different levels.
So it's more than just a 1-2 punch.
Right. The copper attacks the bacteria directly. It messes with their cell membranes, basically makes them self-destruct. But at the same time, the tannic acid is stopping those bacteria from sticking to surfaces.
Okay.
Which is a big part of how those biofilms form in the first place.
So it's like a two-pronged attack.
Right.
Kill the bacteria and then make sure they can't regroup. That's pretty clever.
It is. And it shows why you need to think about wound care from all angles.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just kill the bacteria. You have to create the right environment for healing to happen.
And that seems to be one of the big advantages of these bandages, right?
Yeah.
They don't just stop infection. They actively help reduce inflammation, too.
Right. And that's where the tannic acid comes in again. It's a really powerful anti-inflammatory. So it calms down the immune response, Less swelling, less redness, all that stuff that gets in the way of healing.
So it's almost like they've created a little healing zone right there on the wound.
Exactly. That's what makes this research so exciting. It's not just a new bandage. It's a whole different way of thinking about how we take care of wounds.
And that opens up all kinds of possibilities.
Yeah.
We've already talked about some of them. Maybe even using this stuff for things beyond wound care, like targeting cancer cells or regenerating tissues. It's pretty wild.
It is. But it's important to remember we're still just scratching the surface here.
Yeah.
This is just a small glimpse into what nanotechnology could do for medicine.
So as we wrap things up here, what's the one thing you want our listeners to walk away with? We've talked about the science, the good stuff, the challenges, the ethical questions. What does it all mean for the future of healthcare?
That's a big question. But I think we're seeing a fundamental shift happening right now.
Okay.
We're moving away from that one-size-fits-all approach to medicine. We're starting to think about things in a more personalized, targeted way.
So it's about really understanding how the body works at the smallest level, right?
Right.
And using that knowledge to develop treatments that are more precise and more effective and less invasive.
Exactly. And nanotechnology is a big part of making that happen. It's giving us the tools to actually manipulate matter at the nanoscale. Yeah.
We can design and build things with incredible precision and functionality.
That's leading to all these incredible breakthroughs. I mean, who knows what healthcare will even look like in a few years?
It really is an exciting time to be alive.
It is. So, to all our listeners out there, stay curious, keep learning, and stay engaged in these conversations about the future of medicine because it impacts all of us. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.